What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another part upgrades video for our 79 bike Falcon Pro. We did a review on this bike a few weeks back. It is an excellent model for $4,000. However, I think there are some things that I would change to make this bike better for my type of riding. So today we're gonna get into what those changes are. We're gonna talk about budgeting, and then we're gonna talk about all the aftermarket parts that we know fit on this bike. So if you guys have one and want to upgrade it yourself, you'll know what fits, what works, and where to buy it. Let's get into it. All right guys, let me give you some basics on this bike if you haven't seen our full review. 79 bike Falcon Pro comes in at $4,000. It has a 72 volt 35 amp hour battery, which is on the small side, but this bike is fairly light and it packs 10 kilowatts of power. We'll show you more about the bike as we go through this and as we talk about what parts we're gonna upgrade to. So jumping right into the upgrades that I would do, I'm a taller rider and this handlebar setup comes really low from the factory. So I would grab a taller 3-inch rise Warp 9 handlebar, put that on there. That's gonna give me 2 more inches of height versus stock, and I would probably, because I'm 6'3", also do a direct mount stem that also has a lot more rise. This already has a direct mount stem, but it's really short and low profile. So this would make a huge difference. This would at least give us about 3 more inches of handlebar height, which would be awesome. One other upgrade I would do on this bike, regardless of whether I upgraded the direct mount stem or not, it already has one, but it does not have a stem lock. The bike just has a star nut in here, and that just doesn't keep your headset very tight or safe, and it just has a much bigger chance of coming loose in the future, where a stem lock is gonna fix that. It's a bolt that goes all the way through your headset here, and it really sandwiches your bearings properly and keeps your headset turning nice, feeling smooth, and lasting longer. So even if I didn't upgrade my direct mount stem, I would add one of these. Next up, while I'm up here on the handlebar, I'm gonna spend like 10 bucks on some grips that are gonna be way better than what comes stock on this bike. All these parts that we're talking about, guys, can be found on the 79 bike parts page on our website, tbelectricmoto.com. You guys can find that link down the video description, and everything on that page is gonna work on this bike. I also really like to run these ODI grip donuts. This is how they work. They slide right on there, and it basically like keeps your knuckle right here from rubbing on the edge of the grip as you're using the throttle or holding onto your bar. That's a really nice addition for only a couple bucks. Next up on my list is foot pegs. These are Warp 9 foot pegs. These are the Talaria specific version, and they fit on the 79 bike. So if we crouch down here, you're gonna see that is a major difference. We got about twice the size of platform, way better spikes and better grip. And I would probably do red to match the red that comes on this bike. Next up, let's talk about some tires. As you guys can see, the stock tires on this bike, they're the same front and back, and they are pretty small, which does help with range and lightweight. However, if you are gonna be off-roading this bike heavily, a better set of off-road tires is gonna make a massive difference. We have a bunch of different varieties. This is the Dunlop MX34. This is the Tusk ground wire. Both of these are fantastic tires you can run on the front and the rear. We also have this rear specific Tusk ground wire that's gonna be pretty aggressive. Let's look at it on the side of the bike here in comparison to this tire. See how much of a difference that is. So if you do tires, I just wanna make sure that it's clear you are adding rolling weight, and with this bike having a smaller battery, you really are gonna use up the battery quicker. So it is up to you whether the traction is worth it to you. One other option I wanna talk about here is a great dual sport setup. So this is gonna be fantastic for on-street use and off-road use. This is a Shinko 241. The size you would want for this bike is the 19 by 275 size. So that looks just like that on there. It's a similar size. It's a little bit bigger, but this is just a great tire. Super, super, super popular. We're gonna take a quick break from upgrading and talk about if upgrading this bike is the best money well spent. Because this bike comes in at $4,000 like we said. Let's go over the upgrades we have done and what our total comes to, and see if it would have been better if we just spent more money on a more upgraded, higher performance e-moto to begin with. So we did our handlebar first. Pop that up on screen. It is $79. If we ended up doing that direct mount stem from Warp 9, that is $100. Then the stem lock is $39. If we move down to the Warp 9 foot pegs, those are also $100. So we're adding some money to our bike, but these changes do make a big difference in my opinion. Moving on to tires. Tires, you can spend anywhere from about $50 to $70 per tire, depending on the options that you guys pick. So we've spent what? Between $500 and $600 here on upgrades. And if you want to add a few other small things to it, you're coming in at a price point of $4,500, $4,600, $4,700, depending on the first upgrades and mods that you do. So what other bikes can we look at within that price point? Well, we have the Talaria Sting MX5 Pro. That comes in at $4,700. It does have a larger battery, more power, and is kind of just a little bit better high performance bike in my opinion. Now, it still needs a couple of these upgrades that we've done to this bike, so you would probably end up spending a little bit more than $4,700. So what's next on our list above that? We have the Eride Pro SS 3.0. That comes in at $5,000, but it again has an even larger battery, a lot larger, and it has a ton more power, and it already comes with very similar suspension. It already has a higher direct mount stem and handlebar, so you wouldn't need to do that upgrade. And it already comes with a great set of dual sport tires. If you wanted to do an off-road set, you could upgrade those, but also already comes with great foot pegs. So this kind of begs the question, you know, what do you want to do? And with this $4,000 bike, I kind of think you buy this bike because you only want to spend $4,000. You don't want to spend $4,700 or $5,000. Maybe you're just getting into the e-moto world. So with this bike, it is a great bike right out of the box. You can ride it and have a ton of fun, and you don't necessarily need to spend the money on upgrades. But if you did, these are the first upgrades that we recommend. So I just wanted to kind of lay that all out for you guys so you can see where your money's going. And maybe it is better if you were going to spend $1,000 on upgrades, it might be better just to get a different bike to begin with. One last upgrade that I would do personally is an upgraded headlight. Now this is actually a really decent headlight. If you turn it on, it does have high beam and low beam, and I tried it last night in the dark and it actually was a good headlight. However, I like to night ride a ton, and I'm out in the woods by myself in the dark, and I just want as much light as I can possibly get. So that's where I would upgrade to our Gigago light. This one is $150, so it is spendy, but it is insanely bright, and it has 6 different riding modes, as well as high beam and low beam that you can all toggle with a switch. So I would upgrade specifically to this, but unless you night ride a ton, it's probably not going to be needed because this is a nice light. Those are pretty much all the upgrades that I would do to this bike, but if you want to go wild, let me show you what else works on it. So if we come over here, we've got different sprockets. Warp 9 makes a bunch of different sizes. You can use these to change how the power feels on your bike. If you go a larger size, you're going to get more low-end torque, but less top speed. If you go with a smaller size, you're generally going to get less low-end torque and a little bit more top speed. These are only to a certain extent, basically. And on this bike, I think you should only go, you know, maybe between 4 teeth either direction from stock. Otherwise, you're going to kind of change the performance pretty drastically. We also have chains to go with that. You will need a different size chain. If you go smaller sprocket, you can cut yours down to the right length. If you go bigger, you will need to buy a longer chain. Let's talk about brakes. TRP is a great upgraded brake for this e-moto. We've got different colors, black, silver, and gold. These are gonna mount right up and add a ton of stopping power to the bike. The stock brakes on this do leave you wanting more, I will say that. And that MX5 and that 3.0 have much larger moto style brakes, and so these are lacking a little bit. Let's talk about brake rotors. This bike fits standard Surron sizing front and back. We'll have these on the 79 bike parts page, but they also come with a smaller rotor here. So this is only a 203 size. And so if you didn't want to upgrade your full brake set, you could just do a 220mm rotor, which is larger. You'd also need a caliper adapter spacer, but that would increase your braking performance pretty drastically. Tubes. If you guys upgrade your tires, or if you get a flat, you can also do some upgraded tubes. These are Tusk heavy duty 2mm thick. They are quite a bit thicker than what comes stock. Just know though, this is also adding weight, but it's also adding flat protection. ODI number plate. These are always a beautiful addition to the bike. They make it look super cool up front. You can color match, come in a bunch of different colors. a nice little touch for not too much money. Continuing on with the front of the bike, we have these colored axle spacers. These are gonna go right here. It will replace these spacers, and you can color match however you want. Belts. This is gonna go right in here. It connects to your motor and your jack shaft. These do wear out over time, and so eventually you may need to replace this if you ride a lot of miles, or every once in a while they do snap, but it is unlikely until they get fairly worn out. We do have replacements at standard Surron size. Warp 9 shock cover. This is a new part that recently came out. It's pretty cool. It's gonna go right on your shock, and it basically protects it from getting mud and debris all over it. One of our last upgrades is these Warp 9 handguards. These bad boys are for if you're riding in the woods and you want to protect your hands from rocks, branches, trees, stuff like that. They mount up on the handlebar and they wrap around here to protect also your brake levers as well as your hands. So those are a nice addition if you ride in the woods a lot. All right guys, I hope you found this video helpful, and if you have a 79 bike Falcon Pro, be sure to hit up our website, linked in the video description, where we have that full parts page so you guys can look and see what you might want to upgrade. If you are there and you want a discount code, use Talaria Boys or TB Electric. Both those two separate codes will give you a discount on a bunch of different items. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed it, and catch us next video because we have an exciting one coming up. See ya.